Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Engadget Podcast for the week of June 3rd. My name is Tim Stevens. I'm the editor-in-chief of Engadget. And to my left, Mr. Brian Heater.
I'm not actually this short in person. I had to bring my chair down.
The camera
about 6 inches
off your head. I heard Peter Rojas to my right, Engadget founder. Welcome, sir.
Thanks. Brian, welcome back.
Hey, it's good. Yeah, that's why we're early today, just so that I could catch a plane tonight, so I can go to Colorado.
I got used to this dynamic of just the two of us, too.
Yeah,
I can leave it.
Last week's podcast was really good.
Was it?
And not just because you weren't.
I don't listen when I'm not here.
Yeah.
Audio quality, not so much. But
Yeah.
the content,
Audio quality was
it?
good.
You guys weren't in studio, were you?
No,
we were
didn't.
not.
Yeah.
Well, we were in our own private studios. So
For the record, I was supposed to be on the one 2 weeks ago, but
that's
I know.
true. There may have been some delays that had caused issues in that regard. But hey, we're all here together now for a little while anyway, until you jet off on a jet plane to somewhere else that's
Boulder.
accessible by jet. Boulder.
yeah, going back to Boulder for the second time in a month.
That's a rare place to be going twice in a month, unless you live there.
They're related. That's where Spark Fun is.
Well, all Boulderians? What would it be?
Boulderinos?
Boulderites?
Sure, that's probably
Keep your eyes out for one Brian.
Boulderies.
Because you'll want to be.
There's
keeping
a
an eye
big. I mean, if you're in Boulder, you probably know about the big autonomous vehicle competition that's happening over the weekend.
Which I wish I could be at. It sounds pretty awesome.
Tell you all about it. I'll not drive a car for you.
Perfect. Boy, it's been a busy week in tech with Computex going on, but we're going to start with some of our own news because it's frankly more important than anything going on in Taipei.
Keep the lights on.
Absolutely. We finally announced the actual date for Expand New York, or Expand 2, or Expand New York City, or Expand the Reckoning, or whatever you'd like to call it.
I think Expand New York 2013 is.
I thought we were going with the Expand 2 Electric Boogaloo.
I think that's a pretty good one.
Gadget Boogaloo.
This time it's personal. Engadget is coming to New York City. We're very excited. The Expand conference in San Francisco was a great time. If you missed it, I'm very sorry for you and your family.
Screw you.
Yeah, but November 9th and 10th will be the dates at Javits Center, which is pretty good. The North Hall, which is a very nice
new
venue.
North Hall.
Everybody's favorite place in San Francisco, New York, the Javits Center.
Right.
Yeah. Very easily accessible by public transportation.
Yeah, well, we're going to try to come up with some solutions.
The problem is there's so few places in New York where you can do an event of this size.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
And I know we're planning to do another really big event.
It's like they salted the earth though. Like, they built this big thing up there and have been unable to build anything else around it.
Yeah, when we checked out Javits, they were talking about which train is opening up.
The 7 train is going to go out there, and then Hudson Yards is going to be the total development. I mean, in a few years, it's going to be completely different over there.
But unfortunately, they delayed the 7 train.
2017.
Maybe. I think it's supposed to be 2014 now is when the 7 train is going to start. It was supposed to be this year, but they delayed it. We were actually pretty excited about that because we looked at Javits last year, and it was supposed to be done in time, but now it will not be done in time.
But it's New York City.
We'll come up with some solutions. We had issues like that in San Fran. We figured it out with some shuttles and such. I think we can do something similar here, perhaps. But anyway, it'll be North Hall. If you go to the auto show, it's where GM usually sets up shop, so it's a nice space.
Sure.
Maybe we'll bring some Corvettes in.
Mattel is during Toy Fair.
Mattel.
I think they have their own wing.
Why does that not surprise me? But lots of surprises to come. We're going to be announcing a lot of things coming up. We're going to be doing the Insert Coin competition again, which was a pretty big success at San Francisco, which Joe behind the camera is very excited about, I see, which is great. And I am excited about it too.
Absolutely. I'm excited and scared to look through all of those hundreds of entries over the course of a week or so, But I was really impressed. I don't know, like, not to go too behind the curtain, but pretty much everything about San Francisco went off. I was naturally nervous about everything, and everything went off really well.
I think it was fantastic,
including Insert Coin.
Yeah, it went really well. Really well indeed, and it'll go even better in New York. And if that's not enough, we have another event coming up for you. On the 24th, we have the Engadget plus Gadget event at 82 Mercer, which is at 76 Mercer, which is what confused me.
It's a big building, and that's where the entrance
is. The entrance just happens to be there, but
that's what you get for naming your place after.
And this is our second combined event. We did one in Austin.
Which was a huge blowout success.
And I have a feeling this one's going to be really big, and this one's free. So totally open to the public. We do ask people to RSVP.
How many RSVPs do we have at this point? Can we disclose this information?
It was a pretty big number.
It's a pretty big number.
Yeah,
and
because it's more than just a regular meetup.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have a bunch of companies showing off stuff. We're gonna have some panels and discussions and product demos and stuff like that on stage,
featuring editors such as Us,
maybe.
Will that disgusting maple whiskey be back from the Austin meetup? It was the worst thing I've ever.
That I don't know. I can't speak. I guess we could import some for you
from Canada.
Yeah, from Canada. And just a lot of cool stuff. And we're actually going to open it to the public a little earlier this year than we have in the past. So I think doors are going to open at 6:00. And run till 10. So
question mark.
Yeah, well, I think they'll kick us out at a certain point. But we wanted to be able to get as many people in there as possible, and we know that the line was for the Gadget event in New York last year. The line was really long, partly because the venue made it very difficult for us to get people in.
The Austin line was the longest line I've seen to anything outside of like a Fish concert.
Yeah. So come early. Don't get scared off because everyone will get in eventually. But also,
it's such a cool space too. I haven't been. I've just seen the photos, but it's a really amazing.
I've actually been to stuff there. It is a really, really nice space. So I think it's going to be. I'm really looking forward to this one, and it's in Soho, so it's like.
So the train gets there.
Yeah, so you
like
can actually,
other events in
the city. You won't have to hitchhike your way to this event.
So that's Monday, June 24th, so just a couple of weeks away. It's going to be a good time. I'm looking forward to that as well. So, yeah, we got lots of events coming up, and there's going to be even more in the future, which we will announce also in the future. All right, should we go? Okay, we're going to start with Mozilla first. We're not going to go to Taipei just yet. We'll get there eventually.
Well, that's, it wasn't
related.
It was, okay, all right. Okay,
related,
let's go to Taipei. Let's go have some earthquake action.
Shakiest place on earth.
Mozilla is building a tablet with Foxconn. It's going to be the Firefox OS on the first tablet.
Yeah, well, I think the big news here is the partnership that Mozilla's that Foxconn is sort of coming on as a hardware partner, which is also strange because I suspect they're not going to brand it as such. It's probably going to actually
it's going to be
branded.
Yeah, it'll be white labeled.
Yeah, and I think the tablet was something they were just showing off. I don't know. They haven't officially announced a tablet or anything, but that there's going to be a hardware partnership.
Yeah, which is good because that was a big thing that was missing when we were talking about the operating system before. Was exactly who's going to be building these devices, and Foxconn's a great partner.
Foxconn certainly makes a lot of sense because we're talking. I mean, the only way this is going to succeed on any level is if they can come up with the cheapest possible devices, and I think Foxconn is probably a great partner in that respect.
Yeah.
And things, Mike Daisy really cleaned things up around there.
Thank you, Mike Daisy.
But who is this for? I mean, who's going to buy a Firefox OS tablet over an Android tablet?
Yeah.
I could maybe sort of understand the phone, sort of. But the tablet, it's not like you can't buy a $100 Android tablet or a $50 Android tablet. You can buy, if you want a crappy tablet, you can buy a crappy tablet right now.
Or Kindle Fire, obviously, which is, again, low cost and has access to a great content marketplace, which presumably will not be quite as rich here.
And they're going to do, Amazon's going to do a $100 Kindle Fire at some point.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out, what's and again, I'm totally in favor of having, open OSs and options and things like that. But I think in just terms of, strategically, there isn't a lot that would compel me to buy this over.
Yeah, I don't. I don't think that it's for you at all. They've said
anyone.
Specifically
but
this is for developing nations.
But even people in developing nations are people.
Well, to speak to your point more is this like a Chrome OS situation? Does it have to kind of always be on? Do you have to be connected to Wi-Fi? I think you do, right?
I don't know.
Which makes more sense on a smartphone.
Yes.
There was a lot of back and forth about that when we learned about the Firefox OS, and I didn't really leave feeling very confident that it did have to be online all the time. But that was what they were telling us at the time, was that the phone had to be, even core features of the operating system.
It sounds a lot like online. Chrome OS in a lot of respects, and I think the main selling point here maybe is if you're a Firefox power user, but I don't know how many of those are left in the world anymore. Firefox is a fine operating system, but I think a lot of people are splitting their time between that and Chrome.
The fine browser.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Fine browser.
It's clear that Firefox is not gaining browser share.
No.
And I don't know. Like I said, I think I do understand that the desire from the carriers and maybe even some smaller manufacturers to have an option besides Android. Mm-hmm. But I just think from the consumer standpoint, it's really hard to say what would get you excited about this over something else. And again, there's not the differential in price has got to be significant. Otherwise, with Android, you get that full ecosystem of apps. You get better, what's looking to be a much better range of hardware.
Have they talked about licensing fees on this at all? Because there is one built into Android, and that's kind of mostly Microsoft's fault at this point. But I guess potentially this could be a free operating system.
Yeah, it certainly could be, and it could also be something that other manufacturers customize extensively and build something on top of it too. But again, we've seen a lot of that on Android too. So
and I feel like a lot of the really kind of low end tablets, we're not seeing that on anyway, because they're just kind of trying to push those things out the door. They're not spending a lot of time customizing software on those devices.
Yeah.
Moving right along.
Why was that such a downer? I mean, it's not a
but we got to tell it how it is.
No, I know. It's funny. It's not like, oh my god, things are going to be terrible because this tablet's going to be bad. And certainly it's in Mozilla's best interest to get this.
No, I mean we need to stop Firefox.
Yes, right now. Come on, let's go.
Get me on the next plane.
Asus unveiled about 300 to 400 devices, I think, at Computex, of which we're going to talk about each and every one. So please get comfortable.
Yeah, I think I picked 3 or 4.
That's not true. The PhonePad Note is a phone, which is also a pad, and also
is it
a competitor to the Note.
Are they allowed to? Does Samsung not have a copyright on using notes to describe phablets?
Large phones, apparently
I think
not.
the trademark is probably too generic.
Too
generic at that point.
Think genericized trademarks have stopped anybody from suing people.
Yeah, who knows? But this is a 6-inch device, so definitely falling right into the domain of the Galaxy Note with a stylus, 1080p Super IPS Plus display. So it is beating Samsung in that regard until we get the Note 3.
But I mean, if you're calling, I just want to hammer this point home a little bit more. But if you're calling your device the Note, you're saying to people, this is just like the Note, but by a different company, right? That's what you're saying to people. You're saying to people that we're making a copycat
certainly
device.
Makes the marketing easier. You can kind of ride Samsung's coattails in that way.
Well, I mean, it even I think that Asus is going to see how far they can push it.
It looks exactly like the Note.
It looks like a Note.
It's got
but it's bigger.
Stereo front-facing speakers, which is nice.
Which actually looks like it comes from that Galaxy Tab 10.1.
It does. Yeah, it's true.
They combine all of your favorite parts of your favorite Galaxy devices.
It doesn't look exactly like an Asus device.
Galaxy Frankenstein.
More Samsung than Samsung.
Yeah. Whoa.
An Atom processor and HSPA Plus data. So it's not really intended to be a phone, Asus says, but it is a phone. I mean,
we just call it that in the name of the device.
Yeah, Asus is very confusing with where they draw the line between tablets and phones.
They call it a 6-inch tablet that makes voice calls.
When you have something called the Pad phone, and when you have something called the Phone Pad, I mean, you're literally just trying to confuse people with your marketing.
They're at least setting priority.
It's like 4chan is an electronics company. It's like, let's just name just crazy stuff to piss people off. Let's see how much we can annoy Samsung.
Man. So
no, I have to say, I'm totally
fascinated. Like a great device.
I'm totally fascinated by it. That's the thing.
Not like that crappy Mozilla device.
Yeah,
that doesn't exist, and we haven't seen any specs for.
But there's something as in between as obviously a 6-inch device is. I mean, it's there is something that really appeals to me about this size.
Yeah, me too. And especially, I think this front-facing stereo speakers would be a nice thing to have on there too, if they sound halfway decent, which they may or may not.
Well, let me ask you this: 5 years from now, how many devices do you see yourself, or I guess ideally, would you be carrying around at any one time? Do you want one device that can do everything for you? Is that's kind of what we're trying to move toward, right?
Well, you might be asking the wrong person. But
well, yeah,
no, obviously you want. I think the problem is that there's something appealing at the same time. It's you can't carry everything. You do ideally want to carry one device, but
that's kind of what they're trying. They're trying to split the difference here.
They are splitting the difference, and I think I think they're gonna split the difference in a way that's gonna be. I mean, it's just in the same reason. The way that this is why Samsung's doing so many different screen sizes. That the difference. What works for people, that sweet spot for people is different, for everybody. And some people like a 7-inch tablet. Some people like a 10-inch tablet. Some people obviously a 6-inch. I guess 6.5 inches is the dividing line now, or something.
Yeah. We're literally talking about fractions of inches.
Yeah.
To to set these things apart.
I'm wondering how long it is until Google finally puts stylus support into the OS. I mean, we've got Asus now making a big device with a stylus, LG and Samsung, of course.
Samsung's got to be the big driver on that, I would suspect.
One would hope so, yeah.
They're selling more
I mean,
than anybody else.
It sure seems to me like it's time for a Nexus device with a stylus and time for Android to have support for a stylus. But maybe I'm biased because I actually like using my stylus.
No, I think that it feels like such a retrograde move.
Well, yeah, I mean, isn't the idea to create a device that appeals to as many people as possible with the Nexus when you're coming out with a flagship?
Well,
operating
it's
system?
really to define a category of devices to give developers something to target. That's really what they're trying to do. So they're basically creating a reference device.
Saying basically a third Nexus device that lives with the phone and with the tablet to basically have the Nexus Note.
To cross between the two, there is no Nexus phablet at the moment.
Yeah, but a third
right.
device. Okay.
Yep, I think so. I think there's room for that because there are enough devices out there that for Google to create a reference device for developers, I think would be a good thing.
Can we just start calling the space like Note, since tablet is such a horrible word to say?
Phablet, you mean?
Can we, since phablet is so
Yeah.
bad, can we just start using that as the generic?
Got like Kleenex.
Yeah.
I mean, we could try.
Let's do it. Let's start.
We
here.
might start getting like every time
Right.
we say e-ink, and you get a letter
Yeah.
from the
Well,
e-ink
yeah, but
people.
clearly-
We had
I
to say the hyphen.
I-
No hyphen.
I'm just saying, I feel like Asus is probably more of a threat for that trademark than we are saying it here.
Sure.
Genericizing that
But
trademark.
the funny thing is, like, if it came down to it, they would cite
yeah.
us as an example of why it's a generic.
Oh, I've gotten plenty of those. I've gotten plenty of those letters in the past.
from the e-ink ones, or just
e-ink and other,
Yeah.
not to, they're again keeping lights on, but instant messenger has been a point of contention.
Is this a good time to mention that we're being sued for podcasting for violating that patent, or should we maybe not talk about that?
It's on the agenda.
That patent for there's so much prior art around that patent that
never. Well, that's another. We were
That's
talking
why
about
we're still podcasting.
Radiolab earlier, but there's a really great This American Life. Have you heard the most recent
not
one?
the recent room, but
they're playing some clips of what that company. So this is this. I can't remember the name. They have a really generic sounding like audio name, and
Nobody cares anyway.
We're not allowed
about
to
the
say.
name.
Are we?
Well, we can say the name. I don't
Okay.
care.
I just can't. I literally can't remember the name. But yeah, it's basically. I think it's a method for downloading audio over the internet or something like that, and they were trying to do these like educational devices on this product that they had that never actually came to market. I mean, that's the thing with a lot of these patent troll companies is they come up with this idea, and in some cases maybe it's ahead of its time because the market isn't ready for it, but they're they basically want their piece of it. They weren't able to make any money actually selling the thing, so now they can potentially make money, not so much by suing people, but by settling out of court. By I mean,
it's the easy way.
Well, when you're
especially in Texas.
Yeah, well, when you're a podcaster, you can't pay for lawyers. It's way easier to sell out of court.
This is probably a good time to talk about the Obama administration this week promising to do something about patent trolls. They didn't really. It sounds like they're not going to actually make any sweeping patent reform, but it sounds like they're going to be really targeting those folks who are, doing frivolous litigation is what they said, basically. So they're going to be targeting the patent trolls. I don't think they came out and said patent trolls, but it sounds like that's who they're going to be targeting.
I mean, we need sweeping. We need sweeping.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
But the thing is, if they, I mean, there is a few things. I mean, one is like they really have to have a serious conversation around software patents and business method patents to a certain extent, maybe to a lesser extent,
for a number of reasons.
But the reality is that like a software, I mean, a software patent can be defined in such a way that like it can cover so many things that are not meant, to be covered within the scope of the patent. And the people in the patent office often don't have an in-depth enough understanding of like the stuff that they're examining.
Yeah, and beyond that, I mean, I think what is the wording that's supposed to make a successful patent is something that somebody who doesn't necessarily have a great understanding of that technology couldn't just come up with the idea. Mm-hmm. So if it's the idea of downloading something over the internet, I mean that's a pretty
mind-blowing.
It's a pretty easy one. It should be something that a layperson couldn't basically just sort of stumble upon blindly.
As non-obviousness is one of the thresholds. But I mean, I mean, I'm not convinced that software should be patentable. I mean, I think that there are maybe specific things related to technology that should be obviously patentable, but I think software should be covered by copyright. And I think that when you think about it, the idea that a piece of intellectual property could be covered via both copyright and patent, doesn't necessarily make sense, because a copyright is meant to define, sort of expressive or creative works for the most part, and patents are meant to define inventions, and software is not necessarily an invention in the way that like we necessarily understand it.
Yeah, it's probably more like writing a song.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. The question here, I think, comes down to, again, I think we're in agreement that there should be some kind of sweeping reform. But if they're just going after these, so-called patent trolls, I mean, how are they going to be able to, can they change the patents themselves retroactively? I mean, there's a lot of strange legal questions surrounding something like that. If they were granted these patents, they should be able to. Well,
that's the thing. Right. It's like I mean, I agree with you. I mean, if you obtain the patent and I mean, they're treating the symptoms and not the disease.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, this is at best a half measure, but it is at least something that they can do. I can't imagine the mire they'd get stuck in if they actually tried to do some sweeping patent reform right now, especially with everything else going on. And
I mean,
it's not a political podcast.
I'll tell you this: there's a lot of tech people out there who probably need some jobs. I mean, there are people who are knowledgeable about this sort of thing who could probably, who would probably take a job in the patent office. And that's the big problem, right? I mean, you've got these...
Tax and spend, Brian.
Yeah, well... Yeah.
Thanks, Obama.
You've got, I mean, Peter, you hit on this earlier, but you've got these people who are granting patents for not just technology, but any number of things that they're not necessarily experts in. Yeah. Anyway.
All right, I'm sorry that I dragged us down that rabbit hole.
Let's get it. We got it out of the way.
Let's go back to Computex, because we've got 297 more Asus devices to talk through.
Shaking devices.
Next on the list is the Transformer Book Trio, which is a convertible laptop which becomes Android when you take it out of the laptop dock. Yeah. But it's running Windows the rest of the time.
It's neat.
Yeah.
Next.
Trio, though. It should be really the Duo.
Yeah, I
kept asking what's the third operating system.
Yeah.
WebOS.
You can run Android while it's in the keyboard dock if you like to, but when you detach it, it is always an Android, because the hard drive is actually in the keyboard dock itself, onto which Windows is installed.
What if Nokia just came out and they're like, all right, next year everything is Firefox OS? It's the direction we're going in. What do you think that would do to the industry?
Shake things up.
Tank Nokia stock. That's what it would do. The stock would be gone.
Asus unveiled a mouse that is also a trackpad. So if you like your Windows laptop to also be an Android laptop, you can also use with it a mouse that is also a trackpad. So basically, it's got a circular trackpad, a capacitor trackpad on it.
Here's the thing about it.
It needs a nacelle, so it can be like a USS Enterprise.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's a great idea.
Yeah. They didn't really talk about how it worked, and then they gave a demo, and we have a demo video on our site, but it's entirely in Chinese, so I can't really wrap my head around how the thing actually works.
Well, it's basically a giant mouse that you can move around.
And you can lift it up, and you can spin the trackpad.
Yeah, and it's got a capacitor surface on the top too, so you could lean back if you wanted to and do this.
I mean, is it motion detecting? Do they have that?
There is some motion detection here as well.
Okay, so it can just do everything.
No trackball. Come on.
No trackball.
It's got a spinny thing now.
Yeah. They should add a trackball right in the middle of the spinner thing.
They should just stick a little pointing stick
and a pointing stick in the middle of the trackball,
built into the J key,
onto a power glove.
Yeah,
so you could just wear it.
Okay, I think are we done with Asus? There was way more Asus, but we're going to move on to the Acer, which is not all in capitals. The W3, the first 8-inch Windows 8 tablet, $379, pretty fair price.
For a bulky for an 8-inch tablet.
It is. It's got a 1.8 gigahertz Atom chip, so it is running Windows Pro and not RT. Yeah. 32 or 64 gigs of storage, and again we're looking at $379, which I think is pretty fair. I'm curious what the performance will be like. Of course, in battery life too. It is, as you mentioned, kind of chunky, presumably to keep the Atom processor full of fuel.
And I believe the keyboard is just powered on like AA batteries. I don't think you can actually plug the keyboard.
It's kind of funny that if you look at the picture in the post, the keyboard is significantly larger than the device itself.
Yeah.
So I have to say, like, I think I may have said on the podcast when there were rumors about this, I thought it would run Windows RT, so I was wrong. I mean, because I do have some questions about running full-blown Windows on such a small screen.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, it's obviously not so small that I mean,
8 inches.
It's not like the
tiny.
OQO where it was like a 5-inch screen and you were just like pulling your.
Well,
I have the unreleased
for any
one.
number of reasons. This is at least like an operating system built for a tablet.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like there are, it's
built.
mitigated. Yeah, exactly. Half the OS is built for it. So it's like mitigated a little bit. But I mean, this feels like it's going to be a little sluggish.
Yeah, I'm worried about that too, especially when you get loaded up
I don't
with
think they had
apps.
any performance problems just sort of running through it on a very base level. But
And we're still waiting to see the 8-inch or 7-inch Surface, which presumably will be coming this year too. And that could, in theory, be an RT device. But if anything, this probably points to that also being a Pro device too. But
I think it's going to run Firefox.
it could.
New Surface.
A 1280 by 800 resolution. So it's at least got
iOS.
some pictures. Oh man.
You heard it here first, people.
Yeah,
Oh,
is that
I
is that
called
the big?
it.
That's a big news on
That's
Monday.
that's
is
that build.
Safari OS is the new
iOS, Safari OS.
It's the way of the future.
No, I mean, I do think that, obviously Microsoft is showing some flexibility in form factors and screen sizes, and I think that they do
relatively.
I mean, and they did miss out on the 7-inch trend, 8-inch tablet. I guess they're trying to compensate here a little bit. I mean, I think that that there is this real. I mean, something like this points to the real conundrum that they have over Windows RT, which is like, I mean, why isn't this running Windows RT, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in theory, this is what Windows RT should be perfect at, right? A smaller device on an ARM processor for battery life. And it's just clear that, I mean, RT has gotten so little traction and is starting to not really make very much sense in the grand scheme of things.
Sad but true. Another big phone, the Liquid S1, again from Acer, a 5.7-inch device. Big, but not necessarily high quality in a lot of ways. 720p TFT LCD, so you're not going to get great viewing angles on it. Quad-core MediaTek processor, 1.5 gigahertz and a gig of RAM. But mostly stock Android 4.2, which is definitely nice to see. And
So you'd say it wasn't earth-shaking?
it was not earth-shaking. However, nicely done, Brian, there was an earthquake during our hands-on video, which is probably the most notable thing about this post.
The earth that literally moved.
Yes. If you haven't watched it, I encourage you to do so. Matt Smith is doing the hands-on of the phone when an earthquake strikes, and very calmly.
He is somebody
discusses
I
it.
want on a life raft with me. He
You think
handles
so?
that very well.
He's a little skinny.
It's what you want. You want a little extra meat.
Yeah. If we're talking
It's
about
not going to turn into a hamburger.
We're talking about cannibalism is what we're talking about, right? I just want to make sure. So a decent phone, but whether or not we'll see this in the U.S. remains to be seen. Priced at €329 in Europe, about $430, which is actually pretty fair for a big phone like that. But again, it's not exactly going to be breakneck performance, and the display is kind of meh.
So that kind of seems to be what's coming out of Computex for the most part, right? I mean, did you see anything at the show that was really super exciting?
A lot of the laptops were. In fact, I think we should talk about the Dell
that
XPS 11.
that new Transformer. Was it the Transformer Infinity?
The new Infinity, with the 4K video outputs.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty. I mean, depending on what it costs and when it hits the US, I might.
$1 million.
Yeah, I know.
You might buy a 6 laptop for your apartment.
Right. I don't know. Just like I mean, I like that it's going to have the high resolution, and I've always been sort of partial to the Transformer series. So.
Sure, it's a great 6th laptop.
Six
They've
laptop.
done well.
It's your 12th screen.
And Dell also announced the XPS 11, which is a lot like the Lenovo Yoga, and that is a laptop that kind of folds around backwards. But Dell took the interesting tact of putting like a membrane-style keyboard, a lot like the touch cover on the Surface, or like an Atari 400 if you're as old as I am.
I had one of those.
I learned BASIC on that. It was not a pleasant
Yeah,
experience.
it's not fun to type.
But a lot of people with the Yoga were complaining that when you flip it around, the keys in the back are not a good experience, so Dell wanted to fix that. But I'm concerned that in doing so, they killed the typing experience, which is obviously a very important part of a laptop. But, I haven't touched it myself, so I'll refrain judgment until I do.
One of these days, somebody's going to figure out how to make a nice hybrid. One of these days, they're going to make
days.
a form factor that works.
One of these days. MSI launched the Primo 81, which is a 7.85-inch tablet, which may sound familiar because it's actually the same display as in the iPad mini. 1024 by 768 it is. Android 4.2, gig of RAM with an all-winner A315 processor. I love all these manufacturers we're hearing about out of Taipei this year.
All winner. Well, how can you? How can you mess with
literally
that?
can't
Yeah,
lose.
you
You literally
can't
can't
lose.
lose.
Yeah.
Quad-core all-winner A315.
There's a
Pretty
nice
great.
picture of it up sitting next to a mini, and it's really hard.
I was hoping you
to
said
pull
all
apart.
winter, which I thought would be. This will last you all winter.
Just winter half the year.
I was going to make a Game of Thrones joke that the Primo 81 is coming.
Spoiler
But yeah, it looks very, very similar to the Mini, except for the fact it's missing the home button.
Well, I have to say, I wouldn't buy any tablet of any kind with that display resolution.
Not these days, no.
Yeah.
Not these days at all. Boy. Any other Computex highlights we want to talk about? We kind of blew through this pretty quickly.
Did it for
actually.
me, yeah. Again, I don't think there was anything earth-shaking out of Computex.
You did that joke once, man. I think that's the most you can do it on the podcast.
Except for the earthquake.
Except for the
Tech-wise, though.
I'm making an earthquake joke.
Hey, everybody. I'm just saying that none of the animals got super spooked before any of these things were released. No. Yeah.
I do want to talk about briefly the monitors that Asus launched. There was a 31.5-inch 4K monitor, which I think is the first 4K display for, monitors anyway, that I've seen launched. $3,800 for a monitor is obviously not cheap, but it is 4K, and I think it's the first.
Buy a lot of Firefox tablets with that.
Coming in Q3. And then Asus also launched some touchscreen monitors too, which I think is great because we really haven't seen that many, that can help you to take advantage of Windows 8. Whether or not you actually want to be reaching up and doing this at home is, of course, up to you, the user. But now, thanks to Asus, you will be able to this fall.
What about those new Sharp and Fujitsu laptops with the 3200 by 1800 resolution displays? I feel like those are worth mentioning, at least.
Yeah. Mention away.
If for no other reason than from seeing the that new Kira book from Toshiba, it's clear that Windows 8 is not ready for such super high resolution screens. But it's great to see people at least starting to manufacture them and getting them out there. And
not only are they high res, they're IGZO panels, which is ignium, gallium, zinc oxide, I think it is. If I got that right, please give me kudos on Twitter. This is basically, not only does it give you high resolution in theory, it also is lower power consumption, which is great. So this could mean that the battery life on these devices will be great as well. But that's pretty cool to see these rolling out because we just saw, I think, the first panels at Computex last year.
Yeah.
So that they're in production already now. It's pretty great, especially in these sizes at this resolution.
It seems like Microsoft needs to just start making that their number one priority when they're coming up with a new operating system is making sure it can work on as many different form factors as possible.
I know that's definitely what they aspire to do, but Windows 8 is just not ready for higher resolutions.
Obviously, they had the same problem with Windows Phone. Yeah. And if you really want to get manufacturers on board with your device, you need to make sure they can kind of do whatever they want with it.
Yeah, that's a problem, but it takes a lot of work because you have to redo all the graphics and the elements and think about all this.
Saying, they've got the people to do it.
No, I know, but Brian, it's more. You can't expect us to do all of these things.
The Galaxy, I guess we'll move away from Taipei anyway. We'll get back here to the United States of America. The United States of awesome. Samsung Galaxy S4 Active is official, which we've been seeing pictures of for, it seems like as long as we've been... Right, we've been seeing pictures of this for as long as we've been seeing the Galaxy S4.
How can you come out with a product line called the Ative and then come out with the Active? I mean, again, you're just taunting consumers at this point.
Yeah, it's true.
It's possible that no one is paying attention.
Well, that's except for us.
You mean at the companies
they won't notice?
that was a big source of confusion when they came out with the Ative. People thought it was the Active.
Yeah, and we weren't sure how to pronounce it either. I'm still not sure Ative is correct, but perhaps we'll never know.
I do want to think that maybe there's someone at Samsung whose job is to keep track of all the brands.
Some poor soul.
To keep that list. To keep the master Excel file.
You remember that old Simpsons episode where they're scanning down through the center of the earth and there's kind of a Hindu god with 50 buttons, 50 hands pressing all the buttons. They must have hired a Hindu god. Is my point. This is, I don't know, this I put this on there because I feel like this has things that smartphones at this point should have. I mean,
I think it's a great idea. I wish that more manufacturers would release durable versions of their phones.
I think that stock devices should be dust resistant and water resistant.
Yeah, and it's nice for there to be a high-end durable device because usually if you want a durable device, you're getting the Giz1, which I cannot say with a straight name. Devices
it's all kinds of.
I thought it was the Gizone,
like the calzone.
Remember the Pizzone?
Yes. It's a Pizza Hut special. You get yourself a free smartphone if you order 2 medium pizzas, but only by the weekend.
Pizzones.
Exactly.
It's possible. I mean, we have the technology now to make make rugged devices that aren't super ugly
Yeah.
and that have full screens.
And it's Sony with the Xperia Z, making that waterproof, which is nice. So this is dust resistant, but it's still, basically Galaxy S4 specs, 1.9 gigahertz quad core chip.
It looks pretty good.
It's not bulky by any means. It's got a couple, exposed screw heads in the back because you need to have that to show that it is a durable device.
Sure.
Presumably they don't actually work. I mean, I can't imagine you can actually. Well, maybe you can unscrew it. Maybe you can actually replace those bumpers and put billet aluminum ones on there if you want to, or something cool.
Or a spoiler.
That'd be awesome, man. All right, I'm buying this phone right now. Did we get pricing? I don't know that we got pricing on this just yet. Presumably it will be more than the Galaxy S4. It has a glove touch screen as well, so you can use it with gloves on.
There you go.
Which is important when you're doing
diving.
durable things. Yeah, scuba diving. So cool. I kind of want one. I wish they would make a Note durable because I dropped my Note over the weekend and I chipped the bezel on the display.
So you got to get one of these massive cases.
Yeah. Did you fix your headphone jack, by the way?
Yeah. Apparently it was a memory issue.
A memory issue.
I know, it's weird, right?
That is very weird.
It was an iTunes memory.
Apparently memory can break your headphone jack. On
Bizarre
your phone.
problem on an Apple product. Get out.
At least the geniuses took care of you, buddy.
Yeah. They gave me a nice back rub too.
Galaxy Tab, 2 new Galaxy Tab 3s. The third in the Galaxy Tab series.
literally pause to scratch your head.
Available in both 8 and 10.1 inch size. At least Samsung pushed them both out at the same time.
Repeat all those specs that you just have covering your screen.
It is the Samsung Galaxy Tab 3, 8 and 8.1. No, 8 and 10.1 inch.
What existing Galaxy Tab 3 sizes do we have?
With those sizes and many, many more. 7 and 7.7 and 13 and 26.8 and so many great Galaxy.
I was worried that the 26.8 wasn't going to be successful, but the people of South Korea proved me wrong. Those things are huge down there, literally. You can't get them through. You can't get them through the metal detector at the airport. But if you don't fly a lot, if you're not a frequent traveler, by all means, buy a 26.8 inch tablet.
Why not? It's
Zach
great for couch
actually has
surfing,
4
man.
of them now.
Zach is an early adopter for large devices, so that's no surprise at all.
He's built a house out of them.
Probably the most interesting thing for me on this, aside from it being a third the size of the 26.8 model, the 10.1 inch model has Intel's latest chip, which is LTE compatible. And Intel just this week, finally, Intel just this week said that they made a major misstep by not having LTE support, which is like, duh. But they've got it now in this one device.
They were thinking short-term evolution. That's a problem. They were thinking SD.
Wow, that's inside, man. I like it though.
That was just for the.
Yeah,
that was just for the room.
That's for the
I'm
homies.
just playing for the room. Yeah.
I will say, and I hate to be a broken record about this, but WXGA.
I know. I can't believe they haven't fixed that yet.
Samsung.
Oh, they'll come out with 4 new tablets of different resolutions in the same size.
It's weird that they'll do like a high resolution tablet for for their Nexus, but they won't do it for themselves.
And they haven't. That's like the one spec that hasn't shifted in all the evolution of the Galaxy Tab.
I'm just saying, like a screen of that size, like it just doesn't the screen does not look good enough.
No, it doesn't.
And it's not, and they're not doing that to save money either. I mean, it's not going to be a super cheap tablet, I imagine.
Well, I mean, it won't be expensive.
This is supposed to be their flagship, right? Well, I'm not sure.
I mean, it's hard to know these days.
Well, the Tab 3
the
line is the flagship.
Is it the flagship?
But this is one of 12 Tab 3s, so they can't all be flagship.
But I mean, it would be very helpful if Samsung would at least let us know which one is meant to, like maybe a gold star in the corner or something.
That'd be good. That'd be good. Yeah.
Samsung Gold Star.
But presumably,
the month of release this month, this is our top product.
I think their flagship is going to be the Samsung Active.
The Active.
Active. No.
The Activia
with 26.8.
With active biocultures.
Well, the question is, are they going to announce even a successor to this?
The Samsung Splenda.
Maybe the Tab 4 will be announced on the 20th at their big event in London.
It's entirely possible.
The Tab 3 was just such a lackluster release too. I mean, they just kind of like snuck that out.
Well, I mean, ultimately, there's not a whole lot to get too excited about here. Presumably, these will be priced on par with the iPad both the mini and the full size. But yeah, I mean, the display quality is nowhere near what we've got on the iPad, at least on the 10.1 inch. The 7 inch is, on par with the iPad
bar
mini.
with the iPad mini.
It is a low bar.
I just suspect, they probably just are going off of the fact, that not a lot of people are paying that much attention to these things, into what line it is, and just going online and clicking a box or picking something up at Best Buy. They don't care if it's a flagship.
They do care, Brian.
You think so?
I think the Gold Star would really sell them.
Do you think so?
I think it would. I
know it sounds crazy, but
if it was called the Samsung like A quadruple plus
Gold Star.
See me after school.
Final thing of news for the week: the WWDC rumor roundup.
Yeah, I actually put two. I want to, because we've got two big events coming up. Next week.
Oh, that's true. I didn't see those. There wasn't a link on there.
Well, there's no story to correlate to that.
I can't click it, then I'm going to talk about it. Yeah, well, so WWDC and E3 are sadly starting at the same time. The excitement at E3, of course, starts the day before the show with the pre-show events from Sony and Microsoft, which are on Monday, which is also the day of the WWDC keynote. And not only that, they're happening at the exact same time. So that's unfortunate for people like me who would like to be at both, but I am only of one body. So anyhow, WWDC will be first. We're starting 30 minutes before the Microsoft thing, so we might as well talk about that first.
I actually got a hotel room in San Luis Obispo, so I could go to both of them.
Yeah, you go to both.
Just going to be a 3-hour drive each way.
Yeah, that's pretty convenient. Yeah. Pretty convenient. iOS, I think we're all expecting iOS 7. Is it going to be as flat as they say, Peter?
I don't think it's going to be as flat, but I think that the that app that they put out for WWDC gives some indications of what is coming. I'm not sure that it's going to be... I don't think it's going to look like Windows Phone, which I think there are some people that seem to think that's what they're going to...
The flattest operating system.
Flat. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I think that we're going to see a simplification and flattening. Sure. I don't think it'll be drastic. I think that just in the same way that each... with Mac OS 10, you could see from each, release an evolution of the design.
Sure.
But it wasn't necessarily drastic from one step to the other.
But the evolution is kind of taking some of the chrome off of it, basically.
Sure. And I think that's what we'll see. I don't think it's going to be crazy. I think it will be an improvement.
I think it's time for them to just come out with something that looks a little bit different too, right?
I think we'll still have the field of icons, though. I don't think that they're going to give that up. I mean, because it's a form factor. I mean, it predates Apple, so it's a form factor it's a design that tends.
Pretty
to
sure
work
Apple invented icons and operating systems.
Tim Cook also at All Things D last week talked about being a little bit more open in terms of their API. So presumably we'll see some sort of an aspect of a plugin sort of thing. I would love to see custom keyboards, for example, but I think I'm probably being a little too optimistic in that front. But we may see some other.
You pay Apple to make those decisions.
Yeah, I suppose so. But we may see more plugins, for example, or more sharing options that could be perhaps exploited by third parties who don't get the blessing from Apple.
I mean, this is what you do, right? If you're Tim Cook, you come in and you're like, oh, I'm the open guy. Right. I mean, this is how I'm setting myself apart. I'm the open guy. We're much more warm and welcoming to other companies. I think so. I think it's a good way. I don't think I don't think they're gonna be as open as they possibly can be, or as much as he's gonna sell it. But I think that's gonna be the bent.
Sure. OS 10 also going to be seeing some sort of an update, presumably, but the nature of the update remains to be seen. Will it be as major as we're expecting the iOS update to be, or will it just be another kind of predictive point release? I mean, we haven't really heard much of any indications on that front. So,
they've
speculate wildly.
I think also that people are frankly less interested.
It's true.
Than they used to be.
Well, I think part of that is just because they've gotten on the schedule of coming out with a kind of a point upgrade every single year. And I think it's probably a good thing. I mean, it's a nice system to have, but even when you're doing that, you still need to shake things up a bit from time to time, and it is starting to feel pretty stale now.
Yeah, I'm ready for OS 11. But my only fear would be that OS 11 would look a lot like iOS, or would have a lot of iOS-like features.
Anything
in it,
they do, any upgrade is going to be more mobile-like. I mean, I don't think there's any.
I just hope that they don't go as far as Microsoft did.
Yeah, the worry is that they're going to end up crippling some of the professional needs.
Right,
and these are
professional needs like resizing Windows. Really complex stuff. Haswell-based MacBooks seem like a total lock. And so, we saw a lot of great stuff this week about the performance of those chips, not only in terms of actual performance, but in terms of efficiency. 50% battery life on some of those models, Intel is promising, which could mean that Apple could actually put less battery in the devices, make them thinner, and still give you the comparable or even better battery life, which is an exciting thought, especially on the 13-incher, which is actually too thick for my taste. It's thicker than the 15. Maybe there'll be an opportunity for them to make it thinner.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly would welcome that.
Yeah.
I'm getting ready to think about my next upgrade.
As am I.
Is there a way that they can make it hotter and make the fan run louder? I mean, are they working on that technology?
Maybe, Brian. I can't comment on that. There's also
what do you know, Tim?
There's been
we're not allowed to tell you.
rumors this week from 9to5Mac about a new 1080p camera as well, a new microphone array as well to reduce noise, and a couple of other tweaks like that too. So,
but nothing that's going to get, most
Brian out of bed.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna be sleeping in San Francisco that night. Nothing that's going to get like your Bloomberg's excited, your CNN's excited.
Probably not. No, they're going to wait for the new phone and or some other new products such as a watch and or a television.
And music service.
A music service as well, which I think was a pretty solid thing.
Yeah,
whether
but
or not Apple wants to launch it yet.
But it's like, I don't know. I'm saying this, and I'm sure it'll be a huge, tremendous hit, no matter what it is, because it's Apple, and whether or not it's a revolutionary product, a lot of people are probably going to start using it. But it's not. It's nothing so far as like a Spotify competitor. It just sounds like they're maybe launching an internet radio service, which at best is probably something that's just going to live in iTunes.
With iAds, we heard a rumor today that they'll be selling ads using iAds, which we were talking about before as being a huge, amazing, overwhelming success. But we might be hearing new audio advertisements sold directly by Apple in whatever this radio service is.
Yeah.
And presumably, you can make them go away for money.
Yeah, if they're better than the Spotify ads, I'm on board.
I mean, I'm sure tons of people use this, but I agree with Brian. I don't think this is going to be anything to get too excited about. If you have Pandora or have been using Pandora already, it's probably not going to be drastically different, or drastically better than that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if it takes a big chunk out of Pandora, though. If it's just something that's easy enough.
No,
I
think people will use it for sure. Yeah. Anything that Apple layers in like that is going to do all right. I just don't think it's going to be.
It's probably going to be something as simple.
It's not. It's not going to change the landscape.
No, and it's going to be. It's probably going to be something as simple as like when you're in Spotify, you can like click on an artist and have it generate a radio station.
Yeah,
it's probably just going to be baked in.
Yeah, maybe they'll call it Genius.
Yeah, my guess is they're gonna. Yeah.
Well, Spotify does have that feature already.
Yeah. My guess is it's going to be something that's going to be baked in.
No, but it's
and then they're going to make their own app, like a standalone app, and pull it out of there and annoy a lot of people.
Yeah,
maybe.
I should say, as an update, I do think that the podcast app is much better than it was 3 or 4 months ago when it was.
It's nice of you to say that, Brian.
I wrote a pretty mean thing about it online, but it was pretty happy.
Well, they took it to heart, apparently.
Yeah, I think they really did. I think this is a case of Apple actually like responding to customer feedback is a nice way to put it.
Well, look how quickly they fixed your headphone jack in your iPhone too.
In the back rub.
But presumably, wow, I didn't know about that. Presumably, no iPhone. Maybe an updated iPad is possible, but that seems a little unlikely too. As a curveball.
Slight spec bumps.
Right, and probably no watch and probably no TV. So don't get too excited.
I think that I think that Tim Cook would probably love nothing more than to surprise everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But so I wouldn't say definitely no, but it doesn't appear to be in the cards.
Yeah,
but I think they're really getting back into the heart of WWDC. Is let's have this be a software event, and and it sounds like they're going to try to blow it out on that front, which is exciting.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll definitely see. That's certainly what the tack that Google took at I/O this year was to focus on developers. And
it's interesting
it's
that those kind of coincided. Did he say he hasn't come out and said that there's not going to be any hardware the way Google did?
No, he didn't come out like Sundar did and say don't get your hopes up. So I mean. The keynote, I think, will be much more consumer focused than Google's keynote was.
But sure, it's Apple.
Right, but ultimately, the event itself, as ever, is for devs. So go make great software, devs, because we love you. Moving a little bit further south, down to Los Angeles, E3 will be happening at the same time, as I mentioned. So we've got Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo. The first two of those will be doing great things. The latter of the bunch, perhaps somewhat less great things, as much as it pains me to say it.
They're not even having a keynote.
Yeah. It's sad. Nintendo always had the loudest people, and often they had the largest venue, but then they moved to Nokia Theater, and now it's Not so much anymore. So Nintendo's going to be having a private demo session for developer or for media like such as us, and presumably we'll see some new titles there and that sort of thing. But yeah, they won't have a keynote, which means they probably don't have anything big to announce. Which is
maybe there'll be a new Pikmin.
There will be a new Pikmin, as a matter of fact, which I'm actually excited about it, if I don't mind saying. Xbox One, of course, we didn't really see any games at the launch event a couple weeks back in Seattle, so this will be the time for them to unveil games. We'll also learn a lot about...
Or announce that they're just not going to have games on it.
That's possible, too.
You know what? We're just not going to do games on this one.
This is just a DVD player.
Sony, you can take this one. But we'll also hopefully learn a lot more about their DRM solution and their ownership solution, which was a bit vague. How exactly, games we know will be associated to your Xbox Live account somehow.
That's the sort of sexy thing that you want to unveil at your E3 keynote.
I have a feeling they might want to keep it vague up until launch.
Yeah, the day before, if then even.
Day after.
Yeah, there was a lot of misinformation and a lot of things going back and forth in Seattle. People didn't really know the answer to the solution, like how often will the Xbox connect online to verify your purchases. We heard different answers to that question. So there's a lot of questions to be answered there, but hopefully the answers are good.
Just wait for that Amazon feedback to come pouring in.
We don't know the price yet either, of course. But you will actually, if you are in LA, you'll be able to try out the Xbox One yourself, which is cool. Microsoft is having their own kind of party thing. And I don't know how exclusive the invites are going to be, but if you want to go check out the Xbox One, the controller yourself, this is a great idea. So I think
fairly, or else that thing's just going to be
it's probably going to be bonkers. Yeah. But follow Major Nelson on the Twitters if you haven't already for whatever further details you need there. And of course, we'll be writing about it too. And then Sony, we know, it's kind of weird. I feel like we know more about the PS4 than we do about the Xbox One, despite the fact that we haven't seen the
yeah, we know what the corners of it look like when they're moving fastly across the screen.
Yes, but excuse me as I inhale my water at a very critical moment of this podcast. We will be seeing, of course, more games for the PlayStation 4. And I think, so Microsoft led with their home entertainment thing and said we'll talk about games at E3. Sony very much led with the game side of things, so I think we'll hear more about the other side of things from Sony.
And maybe an earthquake.
We can hope.
Southern California.
Actually, I really hope not.
Maybe we should send Matt Smith to E3, since he's proven himself in battle against
people
earthquakes.
Out of the LA convention.
But regardless, it's going to be a big E3, which is great. I'm pretty excited to read the coverage. So I think it's going to be awesome, and I can't wait to spend a lot of money on video games this fall.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely going to be buying. Definitely the Xbox One.
Yeah.
Might buy the PS4 as well.
Is there going to be a big Ouya unveil?
That's actually Ouya has been asking for devs who want to show their games off at E3, so there will be an Ouya presence. But I'm presuming that's going to be where we'll see the final retail hardware Ouya, which I think is shipping later this month. At least that was when they were trying to ship it.
What else? Do you think we'll see more Oculus stuff?
Yeah, we'll see more Oculus stuff for sure. We'll see some. I think Nvidia's got some new gaming cards to show off, and a lot of games.
It's going to be I think there was a reason why we saw few games at the Xbox One launch.
Yeah,
they really wanted to hold their fire until E3.
And I hope
like a new smaller Wii U or like in pink.
No, I don't think Nintendo's got any. I mean, I would love to see Reggie get out there at E3 and just blow everybody away with a lot of amazing games
in that backroom press conference.
In the backroom press conference, but yeah, I don't think that's going to.
Probably
happen.
be a new 3DS
or a new 3DO. Okay, well, that's it for E3. It's going to be awesome. WWDC is going to be fun, too. We got a couple questions.
What do we got?
Question from Garrick John on YouTube asking, where's my glass? I actually haven't been wearing it that much lately, so it's actually in my bag sitting over there if you want to know exactly where it is.
You know, it's funny. The first week that after they came out, I maybe saw 4 or 5 different people, just in the wild wearing them. Not a single person since then.
Honeymoon is over.
It is. I mean, there are more apps coming out, and, I probably throw it on a couple times a day, or not a couple times a week, rather, to try out these new apps that are coming out. And there have been some good ones, some interesting ones. Like there's an Nest app now that you can check your temperature at home.
Oh, Vine's on Android now, so
right,
could be an easy port.
In theory, right? Vine will hit glass. Vine,
that's a pretty killer.
Vine would be ideal on glass for sure, but not yet. A lot of people asking, "Where's the Angry Bird, Brian?"
Oh, yeah, my desk.
He's
wearing that Google Glass. Did we put the Google Glass on the Angry Bird? Because I feel like that would have been
We don't think we did.
That would have been a game changer.
We did?
We did?
Joe says thumbs up.
All right.
By the way,
we've done everything we can do.
Do you watch the show Veep on HBO?
I haven't seen it in a while.
There's a great episode where she goes to Finland and they like present her with like an Angry Bird
beautiful.
plaque, and she's like has no idea what it is.
Oh no, she used a hand sanitizer while she was out there.
Actually, probably because she's paranoid about germs, but it's a great episode.
That would be I would expect if I went if I was in the airport there, like just everything would just be Angry Bird at that. Right?
It's like the Prime Minister of Finland like gives her this Angry Bird plaque.
That's their national bird now, right?
Yeah.
How long until they change the flag to put the red bird on there? Armin in chat's asking, if money is not a problem, which one is the better machine, the new Sony 13 or the Air? That's a pretty good question. I'd almost have to lean toward the Sony 13 at this point.
To see what
I
would wait to see what gets announced at WWDC. I mean, for me, a 1080p camera and a laptop would actually be really useful since I do, podcasts and things like that, and video conferencing and whatever. So that would be useful for me. But I think it actually comes down to it's a Windows 8 versus non-Windows 8 kind of question. And one of the things that I'm kind of want to do some research in is there a good Linux distro for high resolution displays? Because as far as I can tell, there's not.
Funky Lemur.
Yeah. but just in terms of like the fonts and things like that, font rendering.
But in terms of pure specs, as of now, the Sony's got a better display. But again, we've got to wait a week because I think the big thing that's been holding the Retina away from the Air has been the lack of storage for battery within the device. But if these new Haswell chips are as efficient as they say they are, maybe in theory Apple could get away with the higher current draw of the Retina display in a MacBook Air without making it thick.
And they'll probably sell it day of, right? They tend to do it with laptops for the most part.
Yeah, very limited access on day of, but
they're usually pretty quickly, unless you want something customized, and then it can be a couple weeks,
a year or two. Really, Armin, it comes down to which operating system you like better. If it's purely down to hardware, either way, if you're thinking about the Apple, wait a week because obviously things may change drastically. Rip Forever in chat, has Microsoft released any sales numbers for Surface? I think we've just got shipping numbers, not actual.
Well, they sold out.
Sales.
We know that.
Did they even put shipping numbers?
We've seen some numbers.
The one number I heard is that they said that it was 50% of Windows tablets.
That's it?
Something like that, right?
That's shockingly low, though, really.
But was it... I want to say that it was Mary Jo Foley said something about it.
So it was 50? It was 50 tablets?
That was their goal, and they actually achieved it or something like that.
Good for you, Microsoft.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's
don't quote me on that because I don't recall exactly what it was she wrote. But
Microsoft's definitely taking the approach of not quoting actual sales numbers, which ultimately is probably the way to go in the long term.
Okay, so Microsoft. Okay, this is Paul Thoreau, who's pretty reliable. Says Microsoft already achieved this goal in Q1 2013 when Surface devices were indeed 50% of all Windows tablets sold.
So there you go. Extrapolate backwards from
I think that indicates that very few Windows tablets were sold.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like, they definitely sold less than 1 million of those.
Does that include like those like Toshiba tablets, those like super heavy ones that are running like
I think
Windows
that like
98 or whatever?
No, I think that's like you're defining. You have to. I think you have to find
Windows 8 tablets.
Yeah, but also they're just not very many pure Windows tablet devices.
Right. I think that's it. Brian, you've got a plane to catch to the great metropolis of Boulder, Colorado. Travel safe.
You have to fly into Denver.
Try not to get run over by any autonomous cars. Definitely check both ways before crossing any streets while you're over there. Are autonomous cars legal in Colorado? I thought it was just Nevada and California.
I'm not sure how they...
One of the many questions you can answer for us this week. I do believe there are some laws, at least. So we've got a couple of events going on next week. We'll have to figure out what's going on with the podcast. I think you're going to be in California.
I'll be in California. I'll be flying back.
When are you back?
I'll be back Tuesday, so maybe we can figure something out. So some of us will be back next week for the Engadget podcast. I hope you'll be back here with us.
Again, Skype on a plane, can you?
Not well, anyway, no. We do record these live Thursday afternoons. We'd love for you to join us next time, but I hope you've enjoyed the recording. Thanks very much for joining us, and we will be back next week with another episode of the Engadget podcast. Bye, everybody.
Thanks.